Look inside almost any home, and you'll find a very specific kind of math happening in the kitchen. Every month, a strict amount of money is set aside for groceries, electricity, and school fees. Then, the cooking gas runs out. The replacement cylinder arrives, and the bill is hundreds of rupees higher than expected, or delaying a minor repair around the house. To understand why that local price spiked, we have to look at a much larger set of books. This animation shows a household's handwritten budget on the left and the National Budget Ledger on the right. When the National Ledger takes a massive hit, it often balances itself by passing the deficit directly over to the household. Tracing the path of that specific gas bill reveals how policy choices made in distant foreign capitals quietly drain a family's personal savings. India consumes millions of tons of LPG every year, but it only produces a fraction of what it needs domestically. The vast majority of the country's cooking fuel is imported. That heavy reliance on imports means the price you pay for fuel is permanently anchored to the constant turbulence of the international energy market. A significant portion of that imported energy travels through one specific geographical bottleneck. This map highlights the Strait of Hormuz in the Middle East, illustrating the massive volume of global oil and gas forced to squeeze through a surprisingly narrow channel. This region is heavily impacted by ongoing political and military friction between the United States and Iran, which frequently raises the risk that this transit corridor could be blocked. As this line chart shows, you can see how global fuel prices react. Even a rumored threat to the strait causes immediate panic in global supply chains, instantly driving up wholesale costs worldwide. So before a single tanker even reaches an Indian port, distant geopolitical instability has already attached a hefty, invisible tax to the cargo. When that expensive, globally priced gas finally arrives in India, it lands as a massive, unplanned expense on the government's balance sheet. At this point, the Narendra Modi administration faces a strict financial choice. They can absorb the inflated global cost to shield citizens from the hike, or they can protect the nation's broader tax revenue and economic stability by letting the price rise. Historically, governments used a subsidy, acting as a price shield, to artificially lower fuel costs before reaching the consumer. But recently, policy shifted toward reducing these subsidies to balance the ledger. As the shield dissolves, the raw global market price drops directly onto the household. A government cannot simply erase a global supply shock. By cutting the subsidy, it effectively transfers the financial burden down the supply chain, straight into your monthly utility bill. Which brings us back to the kitchen. The deficit that started on the national ledger has now become a direct expense for the family. And because the monthly income is fixed, the math requires an immediate compromise. To cover the extra hundreds of rupees for the gas cylinder, shoppers have to buy fewer vegetables or switch to cheaper, lower quality ingredients. As inflation drags on for months, the cuts go deeper. Families silently drain their emergency cash reserves, cancel travel plans, and postpone long-term goals just to keep the stove running. The data paints a clear picture. Middle-class households act as the final silent shock absorbers for volatile international crises and sweeping national policy shifts. The next time you see the price tag on a cylinder of cooking gas, look past the number. You are paying for a chain of global conflicts and economic decisions, funded, ultimately, by a family's quiet sacrifices. Understanding exactly how this system works is the first step toward demanding accountability. Every month, millions of families do the same math. You have a fixed income, but even with careful planning, household expenses climb. You feel it immediately in the kitchen. Those red cylinders of cooking gas become more expensive before they even reach your stove. When this happens, our instinct is to look at our own neighborhood. We point to local supply chains or domestic policy, assuming the cause of the problem is right here at home. But today, the boundary lines of your city offer no protection against global shockwaves. A purely local economy no longer exists. To understand why tonight's dinner is more expensive, you have to look thousands of kilometers away at the continuous friction between global powers. The trail often begins in the Middle East. When the United States and Iran are in conflict, the resulting tension doesn't stay confined to a political briefing room. This map highlights a geographic bottleneck, the Strait of Hormuz. At its narrowest point, it is only 34 kilometers wide. Roughly 1/5 of the world's daily oil consumption must physically pass through this single route. Because of this concentration, the mere threat of a maritime blockade sends immediate panic through international energy markets. This localized threat acts as a trigger, driving up the baseline cost of raw energy for the rest of the world. India is particularly vulnerable to these tremors. The country imports more than 80% of the crude oil it requires to function. As global crude prices rise, the first domino falls at your local fuel station. The numbers on the petrol and diesel pumps climb in real time. Now the second domino falls. As fuel prices rise, the operating costs for transport fleets moving across the country increase immediately. Logistics companies generally pass those costs onto the goods they carry, from industrial parts to basic agricultural produce. The price of vegetables at your local market reflects the energy required to transport them from distant farms. You are paying the transferred cost of expensive global oil. The Indian government acts as the intermediary, tasked with managing this wave of imported inflation. The government can absorb the cost through subsidies. This protects the public, but the national budget takes the hit. If they choose to reduce those subsidies to protect the national economy, the financial burden shifts directly onto the household side. There is no perfect solution. Global price spikes force leaders to choose between preserving national economic stability and managing the daily expenses of the public. Which brings us back to that household trying to balance the monthly budget. While your financial situation is personal, the forces dictating it are global. As individuals, we cannot stop international conflicts or control distant trade routes, but we can shift our perspective. Understanding this chain of events doesn't lower the price of gas, but it does clarify the forces actually shaping your monthly budget. Seeing the global machinery behind daily life provides a realistic map of your economic environment. It replaces confusion with context. If tracing these hidden links helped you understand your world, subscribe for a deeper look at the forces shaping our reality.